You can't afford to breathe on that car. That's what she told Snoop Dogg, without knowing he owned the car dealer. 10 minutes later, her name was on a termination list. Want to know how? Snoop Dogg had just bought Empire Motors 3 weeks ago. Not a partnership, not a minority stake. He owned the whole damn thing. The flagship dealership in Sunville, a place that sold cars starting at 6 figures and catered to the top 1%. And yet here he was, walking across the gleaming showroom floor in a faded gray hoodie, old sneakers, and jeans that had seen better days. On purpose. He'd left the Rolls-Royce parked at home. Today, he drove a dusty SUV with a cracked windshield and no license plate frame. No entourage, no flash. Just Snoop and a plan. He wasn't trying to make a statement. He was trying to catch one. Because this wasn't just business to him. It was personal. Back when he was 14, he remembered walking into a dealership like this with his father, Earl. They were just looking. Earl had saved for years, dreamed of buying his first real car, something nice. But before they could get past the first row of cars, a salesman had stopped them, smirked, and said, "There's a used lot 3 blocks down. No hello, no handshake, just a door slammed by tone." That was the day Snoop learned about how people in power decide who gets respect and who doesn't. That lesson never left him. So now, years later, he was back to test his own empire. As he stepped through the glass doors, a blast of air conditioning greeted him, sharp against the heat outside. The showroom glistened with polished floors and fresh wax. Every car sparkled under the track lighting like it was auditioning for a commercial. A couple of staff members were standing by the front desk, laughing about something on a phone. One of them, a young black man named Marcus, straightened when he saw Snoop walk in and looked ready to help. But before he could take a step, Cheryl Madison, a tall woman in heels and a blazer that probably cost a week's paycheck, cut him off with a subtle hand gesture. "I've got it," she said under her breath, barely glancing at Marcus. Cheryl walked up to Snoop with a tight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She sized him up the way a bouncer sizes up someone trying to sneak into VIP. "Good afternoon, sir. Can I help you?" she asked in a tone that was more suggestion than invitation. "Just browsing," Snoop said casually, his voice even. "Thought I'd take a look." She blinked, clearly not expecting that. "Well, our vehicles here are part of a curated selection. Most require prior appointments and pre-approval," she said, motioning toward a luxury SUV behind a velvet rope. Her tone dipped lower. "We've had a lot of, foot traffic lately. You understand." Snoop didn't respond right away. Instead, he stepped toward the rope and admired the SUV behind it, something sleek, black, and powerful, the kind of car a mogul might drive. "Beautiful machine," he said. That's when it happened. Cheryl reached out gently, but firmly blocked him with her hand. Her voice turned sharp. "You can't afford to breathe on that car." Snoop slowly turned to her, still calm, still steady, but now just a hint of something colder behind his eyes. She didn't notice, or didn't care. Instead, she smiled like she'd done him a favor. "If you're looking for more affordable options," she continued, "we have a certified pre-owned center 2 blocks away. Might be a better fit." Snoop stared at her for a moment, then tilted his head slightly. "That's so. Just trying to be helpful," she replied, holding a clipboard like a badge of superiority. "Luxury isn't for everyone." Snoop smiled faintly. "Neither is power, but sometimes they're the same thing." And just like that, the countdown began. Snoop Dogg didn't flinch. Not at her tone, not at the insult. He'd heard worse in his lifetime. But something about this, about the cold confidence with which Cheryl dismissed him, felt familiar. Too familiar. And that was exactly the point of today's visit. She didn't know who he was. That's what made it real. Still calm, Snoop stepped back from the velvet rope and folded his hands behind his back. "All right then," he said, his voice smooth. "Let's hear it. What would you recommend for someone like me?" Cheryl blinked, caught off guard. For a split second, her professional mask cracked. But she recovered quickly, posture stiffening. "That depends," she said, flipping open her tablet like she was checking something important. "We usually start with financial pre-qualification, so I'd need to know what kind of monthly payment you're comfortable with." Snoop gave a quiet chuckle. "Try me." She frowned, then forced a polite smile. "Well, let's be realistic," she said. "Most of our vehicles start at 100 grand, but we do have a few pre-owned sedans and hybrids that might be more practical for your situation." She tapped a few buttons and turned the screen toward him. 3 listings popped up. A 10-year-old Lexus, a compact SUV with high mileage, and a hybrid coupe that looked like it belonged to a driving school. None of them were on the showroom floor. All of them were parked out back. Snoop didn't look at the screen. He looked at her, straight in the eyes. "My situation," he repeated slowly. "And what exactly is that?" Cheryl hesitated. "I didn't mean anything by it," she said quickly. "It's just that, well, you came in without an appointment and we typically don't get walk-ins who—" She trailed off. "Who look like me?" he asked. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her silence said everything. Snoop took a slow breath, let it out through his nose. His smile faded. "I see." Cheryl, sensing the shift in tone, tried to redirect. "Look, I'm just trying to save us both some time. We've had people come in before thinking this is a test drive lot. It's not. We're not like other dealerships." Snoop nodded. "You're right about that." Just then, Marcus, the young employee from earlier, peeked around the corner from behind the front desk. His eyes flicked from Cheryl to Snoop, something uncertain flashing across his face. He looked like he wanted to step in, but wasn't sure if he'd be allowed to. Cheryl turned slightly, catching his glance, and waved him off with her hand. "I've got this," she said sharply. Snoop noticed the exchange. "I like that kid," he said quietly. He was ready to help. Cheryl shrugged. "He's new, doesn't understand the clientele yet." Snoop raised an eyebrow. "What is it you think he doesn't understand?" Cheryl's tone grew defensive. Sir, I'm trying to be professional here, but we have a standard to maintain. Our clientele expects a certain experience." "And someone like me ruins that?" he asked. Her jaw tightened. "I'm not saying that." "But you're not saying it." The air between them stretched tight. "I'd like to speak to the owner," Snoop said, his voice low, even. Cheryl's laugh was small, but sharp. "That's not how it works. The owner doesn't take walk-ins either. He's extremely busy." "I'm sure he is." She crossed her arms. "Look, I don't mean to be rude, but if you're not serious about buying, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I have other customers who need my attention." There it was. The moment, the wall, the dismissal. Same as his father all those years ago. Snoop pulled out his phone, calmly, deliberately. He scrolled for a second, then brought the phone to his ear. Cheryl raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "Yeah," he said into the phone. "Tell Vincent I'm here." "Yup, in the showroom. It's handled." Cheryl's expression twisted. "Who did you just call?" Snoop slid the phone back into his pocket. "Someone who does take walk-ins." She stared at him, silent. Moments later, a few employees paused mid-task. Whispers started to ripple. Marcus stood frozen behind the front desk, eyes wide. A receptionist nearby dropped her pen. The glass doors at the front of the dealership opened with a soft hiss. In walked Vincent Cooper, regional director for Empire Motors. Dark blue suit, no tie, polished shoes, and a presence that shifted the room instantly. His eyes scanned the showroom once, found Snoop, and lit up. "Mr. Dogg," he said, striding forward with a wide, respectful smile. "So glad you came by." Snoop offered a firm handshake. "Appreciate you coming down." Vincent turned to Cheryl, whose mouth was slightly open. "I see you've already met the new owner." Dead silence. Cheryl's face lost all color. "The what?" Vincent's tone grew pointed. "Mr. Dogg purchased this dealership 3 weeks ago. He's been evaluating operations across the region." Cheryl stumbled for words. I didn't know. I didn't recognize." Snoop cut in, voice smooth but serious. "That much is clear." Marcus looked like he was about to faint. A couple of the other employees stared as if they were watching a live episode of a courtroom drama. Snoop turned to Cheryl one last time. "You made a lot of assumptions. But the biggest one was thinking I didn't belong here. That's always the most expensive assumption." And he was right. The room had frozen. Cheryl Madison, once towering in heels and confidence, now stood smaller than she'd ever felt in her life. Her clipboard hung useless by her side. The only sound in the showroom was the faint hum of the AC and the click of Vincent Cooper's shoes on the tile as he walked toward her. He stopped just beside Snoop and looked at Cheryl, eyes cool but composed. "You didn't recognize Mr. Dogg?" he asked, not with malice but with something worse, disappointment. Cheryl tried to recover. He didn't introduce himself. He looked like... She stopped. Every word was a landmine. Snoop turned slightly to face her. "Like someone who couldn't possibly own this place," he said softly. She flinched. "That's not what I meant." "But it's what you thought," Vincent cut in. She glanced at the growing crowd of employees who had now abandoned their posts. The receptionist stood frozen behind the front desk. A tech from service had poked his head out from the hallway, eyes wide. Marcus stood still, lips parted, caught between vindication and disbelief. Snoop stepped forward, just once, not threatening, just steady. "I didn't come here to embarrass you," he said. "I came here to understand the kind of culture I'm walking into." Cheryl opened her mouth, but he wasn't finished. "When someone walks into this dealership, dressed up or dressed down, black or white, rich or not, how do we treat them? Because today, what I saw wasn't a luxury experience. It was judgment, wrapped in perfume and professionalism." She swallowed hard. "I was trying to protect the brand." Snoop tilted his head. "You sure you weren't protecting your idea of what a buyer should look like?" Silence. Vincent cleared his throat, cutting through the tension. "Mr. Dogg has asked to meet with the full staff. We'll be convening in the conference room in 10 minutes. Cheryl's eyes widened. "The full staff?" "That's right," Snoop said. "Let's have a conversation. No scripts, no sales pitch, just real talk." 10 minutes later, the sleek glass-walled conference room was filled with nervous energy. Employees filed in and took their seats quietly. No one scrolled their phones. No one made small talk. Cheryl sat near the back, posture stiff, hands clenched on her lap. Marcus took a seat near the front, shoulders square, but eyes cautious. Snoop stood at the head of the table. He didn't need a podium. He didn't raise his voice. But the weight in the room was unmistakable. "Thank you all for being here," he began. "Some of you know me by my music. Others might have heard I bought this dealership. But I didn't come here today as a celebrity. I came as a customer. One you didn't know was watching." He let that settle for a moment. "I dressed down on purpose. I walked in off the street like anyone else would, and I watched. I listened. I waited." He paused, then looked toward Cheryl. She didn't meet his gaze. "And what I experienced told me more about this place than any spreadsheet ever could." A ripple of discomfort moved across the room. "This isn't just about me," Snoop said. "It's about every person who walks through that door and gets sized up before they ever speak a word." He looked around the table, eyes locking with different employees. "We say we sell luxury. But real luxury isn't leather seats or touchscreen dashboards. It's dignity. It's respect. It's the feeling someone gets when they walk through those doors and are treated like they matter, no matter what they look like." Vincent stood quietly near the wall, nodding. "Empire Motors will be known for that," Snoop continued. "Not just for the cars we sell, but for the way we make people feel. That's how we build legacy. That's how we win." He turned back to Cheryl. "I'm not here to fire anyone today," he said calmly, "but I am here to reset the tone. Because this isn't a dealership anymore. It's a statement. And every one of you is part of that message." No one said a word. The silence said enough. The air in the conference room remained thick with tension, but something had shifted. It was no longer just discomfort. It was reflection. Snoop had stripped away the veneer, exposed the real engine behind the dealership's glossy exterior. Now, all that was left was truth. From the back of the room, Cheryl shifted in her seat. Her blazer, once a symbol of command, suddenly felt heavy on her shoulders. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was barely above a whisper. "I made a mistake," she said. "I didn't see you. I only saw what I expected to see. And I was wrong." Snoop looked at her. No malice, no mockery, just focus. He nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying that. Owning the mistake is the first step." She looked down at her hands, folded tightly in her lap. I judged someone who didn't look like our usual buyers. But I also know that's not the kind of leader I want to be. Snoop stepped away from the table and stood in front of the room, hands resting lightly on its edge. What happened today isn't just about Cheryl. It's about what we've allowed to grow here without calling it out. The silent signals, the assumptions, the small things that add up to people feeling like they don't belong. He turned toward Marcus. There's something I noticed when I walked in. Marcus, you stood up. You were ready to help me. You saw a human being, not a label. Marcus looked surprised but sat up straighter. That's leadership, Snoop said, and it didn't come from a title. It came from values. A quiet murmur passed through the room. A few heads nodded. Even Cheryl's eyes lifted slightly at that. Here's what's going to happen next, Snoop continued. We're resetting. New training, new expectations. Not just about selling cars, but about reading people with curiosity, not judgment. We're not going to just talk about diversity, we're going to live it. He paused. And if anyone in this room thinks that's asking too much, or feels like treating people with dignity is somehow optional, this might not be the place for you. And that's okay. But I need to know now. Silence. No one moved. No one spoke. Good, he thought. Snoop straightened. I'm not here to micromanage. I trust people, but that trust has to be earned, not through words, through actions. He turned back to Cheryl. You've been here a long time. You've built a name. You've closed big deals. I respect that. But today showed me what we still need to work on. She stood slowly, her voice steadier this time. I want to fix it. I want to help lead the change. He nodded again. Then I expect you to prove it. With every customer who walks through that door, starting tomorrow. She swallowed and replied, Yes, sir. I won't let you down again. Snoop turned to the room one last time. We all have blind spots, but when we choose to ignore them, they become barriers. And this place, Empire Motors, isn't built on barriers. It's built on drive, on vision, on people. There was something in his tone now, hope, fire, and it lit something in the room. Even the employees who had been quiet until now seemed to sit taller. There was a new energy, uncertain maybe, but present, the kind that hinted at change, real change. Vincent stepped forward. Staff meetings will happen every Friday morning. Training begins Monday. Every department, every team. Snoop nodded in agreement, then added, and one more thing, recognition, because the right behavior needs to be seen and appreciated. He looked at Marcus. Starting with this guy. He's getting a promotion, effective immediately. I want him shadowing our guest relations manager and eventually leading customer experience. Marcus blinked. Wait. Me? Snoop smiled. Yeah, you. You acted with integrity when no one was watching. That's the kind of leader this place needs. The room broke into light applause. Not the performative kind, but the kind that comes from knowing something meaningful just happened. As the team slowly began to rise, heading back to work, Cheryl walked past Snoop. She paused. Thank you, she said. Her voice held something it hadn't all day. Humility. Snoop nodded. Don't thank me. Thank the second chance. And with that, the meeting was over. But the real work had just begun. A week later, Snoop returned to Empire Motors. This time without the hoodie, but still without an entourage. No cameras, no announcement, just curiosity. He walked the showroom floor quietly, observing from a distance. Things felt different, warmer, more alive. Then he saw it. Near the entrance, Cheryl stood beside a young woman in a paint-stained denim jacket and faded jeans. The customer was pointing excitedly at a candy-red coupe, the kind Cheryl once would have steered someone away from. But not today. Today, Cheryl listened, smiled, walked with her, not ahead of her. There was no clipboard, no fake politeness, just two people connecting. Snoop watched as Cheryl opened the passenger door and gestured for the woman to sit inside. The woman slid into the car like it was the first time anyone had invited her to belong. And maybe it was. That's when Cheryl looked up and saw him watching. For a moment, her expression tightened, but then she nodded. Almost like a salute. No fear, no guilt, just acknowledgement. Snoop nodded back. A few minutes later, he found Marcus in the guest lounge, giving a customer a tour of the dealership's new customer care brochure. He looked confident now, purposeful. There was a quiet leadership in the way he spoke. Snoop didn't interrupt. He didn't need to. On his way out, Snoop paused by the glass doors and took one last look around the space he now fully claimed, not just by ownership, but by culture. The transformation had begun. Not overnight, not because of policies or punishment, but because someone had chosen to see, to speak, to stand. And that's what it takes. Change doesn't come with outrage, it comes with clarity, with courage, with the willingness to walk into a room, be underestimated, and still choose grace over ego. Empire Motors didn't just get a new owner that day, it got a new soul. Because in the end, it's not about cars, it's about people. And when you treat people right, even when no one's watching, that's when you know you're driving something real.